want to ask you a question about things that are happening right now in our country. I live in Kansas City, and so the IRS is right down the street, and a ton of people are out there like picketing and saying, they've lost their jobs. What is something like that, kind of like a shakeup within these federal entities? What does that have? Does that have any repercussions for someone like you who is filing for people and helping people navigate the IRS?
Yeah, I think it can because, it depends on what that employee that was let go does. They can go work for somebody else, get another paycheck, and, they're just an employee and you have taxes taken out. But some of them might decide that they want to be independent and go off and be a consultant or, be a contractor in some respects. Those are the people that we want to talk to because essentially they have their own business at that point. Right. And so if they don't structure things properly and they're now a consultant and they're getting paid by a company to do work, they can overpay their taxes very easily by not having the right structure and not getting the right advice. And so by default, the odds are not in your favor when it comes to being an employee or an independent contractor. And it's our job as tax advisors to help people tip the scales again in your favor. When you have people that are displaced from a job, there's potentially, if they decide to collect unemployment, that's, there's taxes associated with collecting unemployment. But then if they decide to go into the workforce again as an independent contractor, then there's some opportunity, but some things that need to be planned for.
And then what about just your work with the IRS? Like how many, documents you file a year and all of that. Do you anticipate a slowdown with returns this year? Do you anticipate any lockup there along the way on those paths to paying taxes?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the filings that are done are done electronically. So that's not really going to be impacted primarily by the big cuts that they've got. Where we're going to have issues, and we've seen it already, is when we try to call or contact the IRS to resolve issues, or if there are questions. Hold times are a lot longer. Obviously, if they have fewer staff that are there, they're just not answering or getting back to you as quickly. We've had situations we used to in the old days when it was really bad. We would get in the morning, just call the IRS first thing in the morning, and then sit on hold until we'd get somebody. And maybe an hour or two later, we'd finally get somebody, and then we'd have our questions. But we'd be doing other work while we're waiting for them to answer the phone. It's not that bad now. It hasn't been for a while. But there's certainly a concern that there could be a lack of response time or slowdown in the response time. Hopefully, we don't have a lot of issues that we have to deal with. A lot of times that tends to happen for us after the tax season because we'll go off and file the tax returns electronically. Everything goes through fine. We start to get notices in the summer once they start looking at the information and maybe there are questions. So that's the time where we tend to get more of the IRS interaction is after tax season when we've got to resolve different things that, that didn't get resolved when the tax returns were filed.